Right, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is my first video on my Canon R8, which I've just bought. And I bought an old Tamron 1735 to provide me with a good vlogging lens. I hope it's doing well. It's certainly a lot easier than the Osmo to be able to see in the screen beside the framing of the scene and also the audio levels, and I can see that the camera is tracking my left eye at the moment. So yeah, I can see what's in the frame and what isn't in the frame basically. So with that opening gambit out the way, I thought I'd introduce you to my video today, which is all about really purging my gear, really in terms of film and digital cameras that I've amassed over the years. I'll just put up some B-roll now. You can probably just see here on the table behind me, and I'll just move out of the way now. So all this camera gear on the table behind me is stuff that I'm going to be looking to move on just to help raise some money. Like, I've got a Canon camera now, so its lenses are pretty pricey, and secondly, just to clear some space. So yeah, it's going to be nice to rationalise certainly my film photography gear, because I think for the last few months I have lost my mojo a little bit with film photography. So I'm certainly going to be looking at moving on some film photography gear that I'm unlikely to use again in the future. Like, I'm certainly going to hold on to some cameras. Like, I'll just put up some B-roll now and just talk you through what's definitely staying. That's definitely the Olympus OM2N, which was probably my first film camera that I bought for myself, and I'm generally happy with the results when I use it. Equally, the Olympus Pen F that I bought probably about a couple of years ago now, and I just love that half frame camera to look at and to use. Then what other film cameras? There's a couple ones with some sentimental value, like I've got a Pentax Super ME, which I inherited, so to speak, from a relative that unfortunately passed away. And again, I've shot with that camera and it does produce some really good results, so I'm more than happy to keep that camera. And like I said, it's really quite special to me. And then I've got an old Kodak folding brownie, which again I'm keeping for sentimental reasons. I have shot with it, but it is very delicate, so I'm unsure how much I'm going to use that again in the future. Another camera, the Fed 3 camera up there, and again I've used that camera, but I do feel that it's a little bit temperamental, so I'm not sure whether I'll use that again, but that's certainly a camera that I'm not looking to sell at the moment. Then I've got the Yashica 24, which is obviously a medium format film camera, which does produce some really good results, and it's good fun to use as well. And then I've also built that 35mm twin lens reflex camera as well, so obviously that's staying, even though again I'm probably not going to use that one again because the results aren't brilliant, but I built it, so I will probably keep it because of that. So I think that's pretty much all the film cameras that I will have left after this purge. And then just briefly on the digital cameras, so obviously I'm going to keep my Panasonic GX1, which is an infrared converted micro four thirds camera. I've got my original Olympus EM1 Mark 1, which is good enough at the moment to use. And then I've got the Canon 5D Mark 1, which I will be doing another video on, because obviously the first video I did with the Canon 5D, I only literally used it for 8 days, and I'm pretty sure now that camera was faulty, because I've had the second Canon 5D for about or over 2 years, and it's been a brilliant camera, and it's partly convinced me to give a more modern Canon camera a go. In this one here, I've got a Ricoh GR 2013, and then I've got some old compact cameras like Fujifilm 4700 zoom, Kodak DX3700 that I'm undecided with at the moment. I think I'm just keeping the Kodak DX3700 just so I can compare its results to the Fujifilm zoom 4700 that I have, which again, even if it doesn't work, I'm going to keep because it was owned or belonged by a friend of mine who unfortunately has passed away. So again, that's got sentimental value for me to keep. So I think, and obviously as well, I've got the original Ricoh GRD Mark I as well. So I'm keeping that one for a little while longer. Oh yeah, and of course the Canon R8 as well. So I think after this purge, that's all the cameras that I will have left, which still sounds quite a lot, to be honest. So I think it's well overdue that I decide to get rid of what I'm going to be talking about in a minute. So digging into the loss of interest in film photography a little bit more, but basically I've been shooting film since September 2019, so we're coming up now to about 5 years of shooting film. In that time, I've probably taken in the region of over 1,000 images in film, and when I've reviewed the results or reviewed them recently, I haven't really found that many that I think, oh wow, yeah, I took that, I really enjoyed, I really think that images is great. Don't get me wrong, I love still the process of shooting film and the way that it slows you down, makes you think a little bit more and helps you connect with a scene, I feel, a little bit more. But almost like the Fujifilm cameras in terms of having to dial in the correct aperture and shutter speed in order to correctly expose the scene for the sensitivity of film that you have loaded into the camera. I absolutely love that aspect of shooting film. Likewise, I like developing the film as well in my lab box, and I will continue to do that. But going back to the fact of reviewing the images, I don't particularly like a lot of the images that I've actually taken in the film. I think as well what hasn't helped is like I talked about earlier, the Canon 5D Mark I and the Ricoh GR produced some really special, characterful images, and I feel that that's almost taken a little bit of the interest of film photography away, because I know I can get some really good consistent results with those cameras, whereas film is always a little bit of hit and miss. And certainly the last outing I did with film in this video, I had an absolute film failure where only 2 of the 16 exposures actually came out. The rest were just black darkness because the camera had failed in such a way that the shutter was always open. So the film was always constantly exposed to light. So that has soured my relationship a little bit with film. Anyway, back to the task in hand. So first things first, let's look at what's going from my digital gear standpoint. So first off, I've got quite a lot of Sony manual focus adapters still, and as I sold my Sony A9 and the Sony A7S recently, there's no need really for me to keep any of that stuff, so that's going to be moved on. Another thing going is this lens here, which is the Canon 24-50 for the RF mount, and this is probably the worst lens that I've ever used in my life. Like, I've got a really old Canon EF 28-105 lens here, and even the lens is really dirty and it might even have fungus on it, and I think it only cost me like £55, and I always wonder how it still manages to produce some really amazing results, especially considering the size and weight of this lens. So I was really interested to pay 50 quid extra to get this lens in the kit with the R8 and see how it would compare. and it doesn't really perform that well. I just didn't really find any of the images sharp. I hate that you've got to unlock it before you can use it, and yeah, the only thing I like about it is the fact that it is quite light and compact, but everything else I hate about it. So this one is certainly not going to be hanging around in my collection. Right, so that was my digital gear I'm selling. So not a huge amount. I think it's mainly because I'm still keeping a lot of my Micro Four Thirds gear at the moment, just to see whether the Canon R8 does enough to sway me toward full frame full time, or whether there's still value in keeping my Micro Four Thirds gear. The jury is still out, and I constantly flip between thinking about getting an OM1 to compare against the R8 to thinking about just sticking with the R8 for the time being and see how I get on. It's a constant kind of argument I have with myself, and I'm trying to stick with the R8 for now to put my energy into getting a better feel for the camera and trying to get it to deliver what I want it to deliver. Yeah, so moving on to what film gear is going to go. So we were talking about sentimental value earlier. This actually was my first film camera that I owned. I didn't buy it, my mum and dad bought it for me, and I have recently shot film in this camera since getting into film photography again, but I haven't really been that impressed with the results. I think I've got better cameras, and despite this being my first film camera, I guess, I don't really feel that it holds any sentimental value for me, so I'm definitely going to be moving this one on, despite it probably not really getting that much money. But again, it's just taking up space that I could use to fill with other stuff. Right, so the next camera that's going is my Konica TCX here. So, and also as well, I'm going to be getting rid of the Konica 50mm 1.7 lens, but more on that later. The body, yeah, I think because I'm getting rid of most of my Konica lenses, I don't really see the point of keeping the Konica 35mm film camera anymore. And like I said earlier, I prefer using the Olympus OM2N for 35mm film photography, so I don't need too many 35mm film cameras. In a similar vein, I picked up the Pentax Super A and a 50mm 1.7 lens quite recently. Again, someone local passed away, and I think their spouse was just advertising their gear locally to camera clubs, seeing whether there was any interest. And there wasn't that much interest in older film gear, so I picked this up along with some other gear that he was having trouble shifting. And even though I did really enjoy using this camera, and I think the results are just as good as those that I get out from my Olympus OM2N, I then, as I mentioned earlier, inherited a Pentax Super ME, which when I tried it as well, gave me similar or better, I thought, results. So I'm quite happy to keep the one with sentimental value and move this one on to hopefully another good home, because I don't really need two Pentax cameras. So we got this camera here next, which is an old Soviet Leica version, a Zorki 4K, and if I'm truly honest, I didn't expect it to work, because it did have a, let me just get it, it came with a Jupiter 8 lens here, which was my primary target for picking up this camera. I needed a better camera to work with the Fed, because the Interstar lens that came with the Fed was a little bit seized, so I tracked down and bought this camera with the Jupiter 8 for the lens only. The camera was a bonus, but then when I tried to use the camera, I found that the shutter is broke anyway, and because you can pick these up for 10 a penny these days, there's no real value in trying to repair it. So this one will be sold for parts, and even though I said I'd probably try and sell first, then charity second, but I think if I don't get any takers for this one, then I think I probably will just end up recycling it. And I'm obscuring it at the moment as well, but I will be definitely probably charitting the Holger here. I've tried selling it in the past and nobody wants it. You can pick them up so cheap these days, and my copy, as you can probably see, is red, and it's used, and like I said, you can pick them up new really cheap these days, so I can understand why someone doesn't want to take a risk with a used one. So yeah, I'm probably going to end up charitying this, which is a shame because it's got like the adapters to convert it into 35mm film rather than just medium format film, but I've never really been entirely happy with the results. Right, so then just looking at some lenses briefly that I'm getting rid of. So like I said earlier, I'm getting rid of the Konica AR 50mm f1.7 and also the special Konica 28mm f3.5 as well. I did some tests and some comparisons by adapting these and all my other lenses to my Micro Four Thirds camera, just to help me decide which ones were worth keeping. And I was really surprised that the 50mm 1.7 didn't really compare that well to the cheapo Olympus OM 50mm f1.8, and similarly the 28mm didn't really measure up that well to the Olympus 28mm that I have. So yeah, so those two lenses are going to go as well. I'm also decided to get rid of the Olympus 135mm f3.5. I probably should have ponied up some more money to get the 100mm f2.8, because this lens I've just found to be totally rubbish, and that's probably my one lens that I'm keeping from my Konica cameras, is the excellent 135mm f3.2, which I actually get some really stellar results from, both on my TCX Konica, which is going, but also when I adapt it to my Micro Four Thirds cameras. But it doesn't seem though that you can adapt AR glass to that many camera bodies these days, I think due to the flange distance. So yeah, I'm happy getting rid of most of my Konica gear, just saving that 135mm f3.2. Someone gave me this one as well, a 2 teleconverter for my OM glass, and I've tried it and it was pretty terrible, to be honest, so I don't really see the point of keeping this little thing in my collection either. And I didn't say it explicitly, but obviously I'm going to sell the 50mm f1.7 Pentax lens here, probably with the Pentax camera, because it's a nice going concern then. Someone might want to get into film photography, and having a camera with a lens will be a good start, especially one which I've tested with film. Yeah, so that's all the gear I'm looking to get rid of at the moment. So what am I going to buy with the proceeds? So as I said, I've got a Canon R8 at the moment. I think I need to buy an RF lens for that camera, because at the moment I'm just using EF glass, but I think for me to really give it a good go, I'm going to need to get some good RF glass, hopefully, which is better than the terrible 24 to 50 here. So at the moment I'm thinking about targeting the 24 to 105 f4L lens. I did think about getting the EF variant, but I think for my needs in terms of photographing my dog running towards me, yes, I've got the 85mm f1.8 EF lens, which is great, but I think if I just take one lens out and about, I think the best chance I've got of capturing all the shots that I want to capture is probably the RF variant rather than the old EF variants, just purely because of the more advanced autofocused capabilities of the newer lenses. The other thing I'm contemplating as well is getting a Voigtlander 40mm f1.2 lens for the RF mount, just purely because in the past I've contemplated going to try a Fujifilm GFX camera for that medium format look, but I'm really hoping a really fast lens like the Voigtlander will help avert me from going to medium format, just purely because medium format is a whole lot heavier again than full frame, and I just feel if I can get a lightweight 40mm lens, which I love the focal length anyway, will keep me in full frame rather than the need to shoot medium format. That's the theory anyway. I don't really want to shoot medium format. I'm having a hard enough time getting to grips with the change in depth of field in my images shooting with full frame over Micro Four Thirds, and I think medium format will be another challenge. So that's the two lenses I'm thinking about buying. So I think that's about as much as I wanted to cover in this video. It's probably going to be too long again, but I feel like I've talked about other things more widely as well, so it's probably been a useful kind of update to where I am in terms of film and digital photography on my channel. And obviously there's going to be lots more videos to come about certainly the Canon R8 that I'm filming this on now. So as always, thanks for watching. Bye for now.